going to inundate you with lots of information. I do have a syllabus linked in the chat, so you can go there, and there are links within the syllabus to get you to different places on Newspaper Archive. So I'm going to talk about Newspaper Archive, but I'm also going to talk, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, I have Storied on there. So Newspaper Archive and Storied are basically one and the same. I'm going to talk about how they kind of intersect today when you are looking for newspapers and finding your family in them. So I am Heather Haunert. My job at Newspaper Archive and Storied is the Associate Marketing Manager, and I'm also the company genealogist. I do have my contact information on here. Please feel free to reach out. I will also put this on at the end of the presentation, and it's also on the syllabus. I love for people to get a hold of me. I was a teacher and educator in my previous life, so I love helping people and getting them started. So let's jump right in. So Newspaper Archive and Story, it's two different platforms, but again, they work together. And I'm going to focus on Newspaper Archive first and then talk about how Story kind of jives in with that in just a little bit. So the four main aspects of Newspaper Archive, you can search, you can browse. We have a publications kind of search, and then you also have my projects. So I'm going to take you out to the site. And this is the homepage of Newspaper Archive. And here are those four options that I just mentioned on the slide deck. So we're going to start with search. And search is where I go to probably 95% of the time when I'm looking for somebody in a newspaper. Newspapers are probably my very favorite type of record for finding family information. They are just an incredible resource, and they have things in them that you really can't get in other records. So first off, I want to mention, I'm going to kind of throw in some tips here and there, and they are on the syllabus too, of things you can find on site. So this is our main search page and where we're going to do all kinds of different filters, and I'll talk about those. But I want you to know that if you scroll down on that main search page, we have this section here that's called search by record type. And I have put together kind of like guides for each one of these different types of records and finding them in the newspaper. So for instance, if we go to the marriage page, there's tips and information about searching for marriages, but then I also have kind of accumulated lots of different types of marriage announcements that you might find in newspapers. So this is just a lot of different ones, just to kind of give you an idea of what to search for instead of just marriages. So make sure when you're on the search page that you scroll down and look for those different types of record searches, because there's lots of information there. So on the search page, there are different filters. You can put in first name, middle name, last name, different types of keywords. This is where I really focus my search a lot, is within the keyword search. You'll see there are different types of filters here, and they can stack on each other, and I'll show you that in just a minute. You can narrow down by location, by state, by city. You can even do a publication search, and we can do that a couple of different ways. And you can narrow down by date. If I could give any tip, it would be for you to start broad. I think a lot of times people will try to search and they'll try to make their search too tight by including too many filters. And then they just have gotten rid of all of the search results that they could potentially have. So I'm going to do an example of one. And when I search, this is just a personal preference, but when I search, I literally 100% of the time use a keyword search as opposed to the first and middle and last names. So I put the names that I'm searching in here. So I'm going to do my third great grandfather. His name was Warder Hamilton. And I'm going to do an exact phrase search. So that means for this instance that it's going to look for him, his name, that exact name, in the newspaper results. So I'm going to look for him, and I'm going to do a state because he was only in Indiana. And that's really all I'm going to do for this search. You can see when I added in his name, I had another field come up with keywords. So I could add something else here and choose another one of the filters. So that's what I mean by kind of stacking your searches. But I'm going to go broad. I'm going to just put in his name and I'm going to put in a state, and then I am going to search. And I've got a couple of different things on this page just to kind of go through just the lay of the land here. So you can see I've got 649 records for this particular search. From here, I could start a new search or I could edit. So if I wanted to edit something about the search that I just did, I could. I could save this search. So I added Warder Hamilton in Indiana, and that would be a saved search that I have. And we'll talk about those in just a few minutes. Then I've got over here relevancy. I love this, and I do use this quite a bit. This is how relevant the articles are based on my search, but I can also change this to do the things that were most recently added, or my personal favorites are the date. So I can search and sort by the date, either the newest newspapers or the oldest newspapers. So it puts them in more of a chronological order, and I love to search in that way. Over here on the right-hand side, we have some more filters that we can play around with. So you can see that I am searching in the US, and this is an Indiana search, but then I've got cities that have popped up. So I can show more cities, and there are a lot. And you can see that you have the name of the city, and then beside it are how many instances you're going to find in your results. So this one for Anderson, for example, is there's only one result that is for Warder Hamilton. But if I look at Greensburg, which is where I am from, you can see that there are 578 of the 649 matches that are for Greensburg. So I could put a check there and apply this, and then that's going to filter and just be Greensburg, Indiana. And I could have done that in my initial search, but this is just a way to kind of do that. Now you can see it's even deeper. I've got different publications for specifically Greensburg. It's going to show me a range of the dates of these newspaper matches. I can do front pages only, which again, I love. I really love, and this does, kind of cut down on your results, but I do love if I'm looking for something front page wise, that I could find it here. So these are my results, 578 for him just in Greensburg, Indiana. It's going to give me a thumbnail of the image and tell me the newspaper it's from, the date, and then give me a little snippet with the with some OCR text. Now, we have been working to redo all of our OCR, and it is so much better. So you'll see sometimes when you see OCR, it's just a hot mess, and it looks like gibberish in this description, but this is looking really, really good. So I can get a feel for what these results are going to look like. And you'll also see here you've got favorite and don't show again. So I don't use don't show again very often, but if it's somebody that I know is just definitely not my ancestor, I will do that so that it doesn't show that result again. But you can favorite things. And so if I scroll down a little bit, you can see this is one that I have favorited. Um, and I'll show you where favorites are in just a little bit. So that is, you can highlight that if it's something that you wanted to come back to. So let's look at this one right here. I think this is the one I want on September 8th. So I'm going to click on my result, and it is going to give me the newspaper page. Now, one thing, if you've used Newspaper Archive before, we have added a new feature where I have a scrolling mouse, and I can zoom in and out with my scrolling mouse. So that is kind of a new feature for us that's pretty exciting. Up here along the top, I can adjust brightness, contrast. Sometimes you have papers that are a little bit dark, a little bit light, so you can adjust contrast. You can tilt, which I love. I have just a little bit of OCD. And if I've got a newspaper that was scanned a little crooked, I kind of get crazy about that. So you can actually tilt the paper if it has been, scanned a little crooked, and you can do your a clipping and make it straight. You can zoom in and out here as well. You can go to different pages. And I do like this because this tells me that there are 6 pages in this particular publication. And I can go to different pages here. I can put the number in of the page I want to go to. I searched for Warder Hamilton, so this is going to show up here that I've searched for him. If there are multiple instances of him on this paper or this name, this is going to take me to the different instances if there's more than one. This is another new feature that we have, which I love. So this little information eye is going to give us this about page, and you can go directly to a different page in the paper. These are all links. So if I want to go to the kind of homepage on Newspaper Archive of Greensburg Daily News, I would click on that. If I wanted to go to Greensburg Papers, I could click here. If I wanted to look at other newspapers that were published on September 8th, 1919, I could click here. And then my personal favorite, I can go back and forward dates within the Greensburg Daily News. So if I were to click next date, it was going to take me to the very next issue that the Greensburg Daily News was published, and we have that newspaper. So that's a great feature. I love that. You can download this page as an image. That is really kind of tricky. I don't ever like to do that just because it's the whole page and it's microscopic when you do that. Same thing with print. You can share, which this is another new feature that I love. And again, this is going to be the whole page, and we'll talk about how this you can do this with clippings too. But this is going to allow you to copy the link of this newspaper. And the other ones, you can share it to Facebook, Pinterest, or Twitter. You do have to have, if somebody wants to view the whole page, they would have to have an account to be able to see that. And then we have clip. So we are actually going to clip, and I'm going to find the article that I want. And one thing that I would say as a tip, and I do have it on the syllabus, that I cannot stress enough how important it is to look on the page everywhere, because you may have other instances of that person or family members on that page. And they're actually, this page does have 2. So this one you'll see right here has Warder Hamilton. And so does this one down here has a Warder Hamilton. So I always like to look on the whole page just to see if there are any other instances that I can find. I also like that for different family members, but also different branches of the family. Like, I'm kind of amazed sometimes how I'll find instances of my family members on a newspaper page, and I'll find a mention of one of my husband's ancestors on a newspaper page. So I do like to look at everything. So let's take this one right here, this family dinner, and I'm going to clip up here in the upper right hand corner, and I get my red handlebars, and I'm going to put the box around the piece that I want to clip. And then and you can see that there are different shapes that you can also do, which is helpful when you kind of have multiple columns, or kind of different, you might have an ad in part of your article. And so these are really nice. And then I can clip this. And a couple of things on here. So this says this is going to be saved to Warder Hamilton because that's how I searched. But I can search and put it into a different folder. So I actually have a folder that is, this one right here is him. William Warder was his name. So I can make this go to that folder when I set that folder up. It's also going to go to your favorites if you want it there. Clipping credit is anonymous, but you can click that, and that's my username for this account, but I can do that. If I could give you only one tip when making a clipping, this would be it. So I love doing summaries and notes just because it's so much easier for me. I cannot even tell you how many clippings I have, thousands of clippings. From work and personal. So to be able to find things, I love to put notes in here. So I'm going to put family dinner party at Richard Ray's house. just to give me more information and context, and I can search that later on. Then I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now that is going to be part of my clippings. Here's what I was talking about when I mentioned kind of sharing your discovery. You could share a whole newspaper page, but it's more fun to share just the clipping that's your family. So again, you can copy this link and you could text it, you could email it, you can download the clipping itself, you can print the clipping, and then you can also share it to Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. And I cannot tell you enough how, like, I have been doing this in the last month or two, and I send these to I specifically post them on Facebook for my mother-in-law. She goes crazy when it's her family members, and she's sharing it out to all kinds of people. When it is a clipping and you share it in these different ways, anybody can see it. They can read the entire clipping. So this is a great way to share out those clippings. For other family members. And I love the conversation that it kind of sparks. People are, telling, stories about that particular clipping or what it reminds them of. So this is going to pop up every time you make a clipping. So the way I have mine set, so I am on this page that was the result that I looked for. I have mine that it opens in a new tab. So I can just close this tab and then it's going to go back to my search results. So that's kind of in a nutshell, is the searching feature that we have on the page. The next thing is browse. And I do love browse. This is probably the second thing I use most often. So you can see that we do have other country newspapers here. But I'm going to show you how you can look at a particular, I like to go to states. So because we are in Ohio today, and I do have lots of ancestors that were in Cincinnati. So you can see that I can navigate to a state. I could search over here in the whole state of Ohio, but I'm going to kind of drill that down a little bit and I'm going to go to Cincinnati. And then you can see these are all of the newspapers that we have for Cincinnati. We have a ton. And one thing that I did want to make note of, I am from Greensburg, Indiana, so close to Cincinnati. And so we have very Catholic Haunert last name roots, and you'll see that there are several newspapers. We have German language newspapers for the area of Cincinnati. So that's one thing just to point out. So I can browse all of Cincinnati and I can search that way and just search Cincinnati, or I can even do a particular newspaper from that time. So that is how the browse works when kind of drilling down to see. And this is a great way to see too what newspapers we have for a certain area. So if I went to North Carolina, again, I'll be able to see the different cities that are available. And then I can click and see for Columbus, North Carolina. That's the newspaper that we have. So that is browse. And then one thing I do want to talk about with browse though, if I go back to Ohio, for instance, and I say browse all Ohio, and I just clicked on that link, we have just updated all of the kind of state home pages for newspapers, and it really gives you a lot of great information about each state. So this one tells us that in Ohio, we have 679 different newspaper publications. It's over 17 million pages of Ohio newspapers, and it also gives you the date range. So we have newspapers as old as 1793 in Ohio, all the way up to current 2025. And then you'll also see, if you scroll down, just some of the top newspapers from the state. And then we do really have so much information. I've added different types of things that you can search for in newspapers, some FAQs, so lots of information on those state pages. Publications are very similar to browse. It's just a different way to get to the newspapers of a particular section. The main page of publications is really nice because this is giving you our most updated and new newspapers. So the Charleston Gazette Mail, is in West Virginia, and this one was just updated yesterday, actually. And it kind of gives just general information. Again, it's 1962 to 2025. We have 859 issues of that particular publication. If these are all links, even though they don't look like it, if you hover, they underline. And so I could click on the Charleston Gazette Mail, and it will take me to the homepage of the Charleston Gazette Mail and give me options to search and see some. This is one of my favorite things. These are newspaper clippings that other people, we have 148, have made in the Charleston Gazette Mail. So it's really kind of fun to see what other people have clipped in a particular newspaper. Some other things that you can do on this page, you can look for a particular location. So in the last instance on Browse, I did Cincinnati, and it would help if I spelled it right. If I go to Cincinnati and highlight that, I can update it, and it's only going to show me a list of the publications that we have in Cincinnati. Again, we have quite a few. So that's one thing that you can do. You can also do that by state. So if you hover, it gives you an idea of how many publications we have for each state. So Ohio, we have 675. Indiana, we have 1,218. So this just gives you an idea. And if I click on that, so if I click on the Indiana one, it updates, and everything now in this list is Indiana. You also see you can do date range searches, and then you can also do a newspaper name search. And this is one that I really am hesitant to tell people to do. And here's why. Newspapers change names a lot sometimes. And so if you think you know the newspaper name, it may have changed a couple of different times. So, and you can always search that way and search for those titles. But that's one thing that can be a little bit tricky. So kind of be aware of that. Okay, next on to my projects. So this is going to be specific to you. And so this is your projects page, and there are lots of different options that you have available here. The kind of default when you come to this page is your recent searches. So this is a list of all of the searches that I've done recently. I can come back to them and view the results from those searches if I wanted to do that. I do have people, and I used to work in customer service when I started with the company. My son works in customer service now, and this is a question that we get asked a lot. Can you delete those recent searches? And you can, if you wanted to, you can delete selected ones, you could delete all of them, but you can get rid of those. The same goes for saved searches. So recent are just the most recent things that I've done. The saved searches are ones that I have actually saved and I want to come back to. So for instance, here's one that I've done. I wanted to know, I currently live in Augusta, Georgia, and I have been doing some research on a local cemetery, and I've been looking for interments of yellow fever and 1854. So you can really see exactly what this saved search looks like. I searched for all of the words interments with the exact phrase yellow fever, only 1854 in Augusta, Georgia. So this is a great way to, again, save those searches and come back to them at a later date. You don't have to put all of that information in again. You can save that. I'm going to hop over to people, and I'm going to talk about this more when we kind of talk about the incorporation of Storied. But people is a way that you can kind of create a search for people in your tree. It is definitely more robust on Storied, but I did want to mention that, like, for instance, here's my warder, and I put in information about him, and it's going to kind of go out and look for things that might match him, like in the background, and I don't have to do it. So you can see here that I've curated 5 articles that it's found, and it's saying that there are 514 potential articles about him that I could go find. So that is how people, and you can just create a person and enter the information about them. You can see I've even added images of my people. Favorite pages is my again, if I could impart one piece of advice when you are creating your favorite pages, it would be to stay organized. I try, but I do have a lot of clippings. So my favorite pages is going to be kind of a collection of things. So you'll see that folders are popping up, and it's taking a hot minute because I have so much stuff. So these are all folders that I have created for different things that I'm researching. And if you remember when I did my clipping for Warder, I saved it to his folder. So that's where it went, inside his folder here. This helps stay organized. This is, for me, it's a key thing. You can also see that there is a number beside these, and it tells you how many clippings are in those folders. Just to get an idea. So like 5 in this one, missing person 17, so lots of different things. So these are my folders. And then after my folders are going to be my favorite pages. That was that gold star. I had highlighted one that was for Warder. This is an entire page. I've given it a description, a name, and these are entire pages that I've saved as a favorite. So they kind of look like the little golden document. And then below those, you'll get just clippings. Now, I don't like to keep my clippings inside my favorites. I like to put them in the folder somewhere so they're not just kind of out and about. And I have a lot of favorite pages. They are just, I don't like to keep them out and about in my favorites, like everything. Here are my clippings. I didn't sort these yet. I haven't put them in folders. So that's where your favorite pages is going to include folders that you've created, favorite pages, and then also your clippings that aren't sorted or organized. Again, you can create your folder here. You can delete things. You can download clippings. You can sort different ways, which is really nice. And then you have all my clippings, and mine is an absolute disaster because there are so many. But this is just all of your clippings, and you can sort them. This one is the most recent one. You can see this is the one that I just clipped a few minutes ago. So these are the newest clippings that I've done, down to the oldest clippings, and I can sort that. I can sort by newspaper dates, which is really nice. So this is my every clipping that I have in this particular account. So that is just different things that you can do on Newspaper Archive. And I'm going to talk just briefly. I'm going to show you two different things. I want to talk about Storied. So if you have a Newspaper Archive subscription, you also have a Storied subscription. They come together. It's not an extra charge. It is just part of your subscription. And the Storied side of things has different features, but these are features that are really specific to the newspaper function in my mind. So everything that we just searched and you can search in the Newspaper Archive collection is baked into Storied. I love that I don't have to go to a different site to search newspapers. We have historical records on there too, but the newspapers are baked in, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. A feature that is new that we have that is mind-blowing and just game-changing for me is our transcription to story. So when you're a newspaper archive, if I make a clipping, I just have a clipping. It's just a clipping, and that's all it is. But if I do that exact same clipping, and I'm going to show you one, if I do that exact same clipping in Storied, it's going to transcribe that newspaper article for me, which it's like a winning moment for me. I love that. So that's a pretty cool feature. You can also tie it to your family tree and tag people. So that is, let's go out and I'll show you what that looks like. Actually, here. So I'm going to come over to Storied, and this is an example. So Storied is a family history site. And again, you've got our newspaper search over here that's searching the exact same things that we have in Newspaper Archive, and it's just part of your subscription. It all comes together. Your login for Newspaper Archive also works for your login for Storied. So some things that you'll see on here. So this is one that I just did a few minutes ago before we got started. This was an obituary for my husband's grandmother. And I'll go in here and show you what this looks like. But you can see people can like and comment on these. And you can also share it from here, just like you could in Newspaper Archive. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And I did change the title. So the AI technology that we use to transcribe this will give you a title, but I was an English teacher, high school English teacher, so I'm picky. So I like to change my titles, but it automatically puts in the location of the newspaper that you clipped. It automatically puts in the date of the newspaper that you clipped. And this is the transcription of this obituary. I did the only thing I did was change the title and I put in spaces between the paragraphs because that's another thing that just is a personal thing for me. But that's all I did. I did not have to change anything. It totally transcribed this perfectly. So let's go out and do an example of one. So I'm going to go to my newspaper search, and this search page looks exactly like the search page on Newspaper Archive. All the filters are the same. Everything is the same. It's just built into the Storied site. So I am going to do one of my husband's grandfathers, and I'm going to do an exact phrase in Indiana. And I am going to be specific about this one because I am looking for his obit. So I'm going to go by year, and it was in 1926. And I'm specific. I want 1926. So the results, as you can see, I'm not going to get very many. But these are the results. It looks the same pretty much as it does in Newspaper Archive. I can click on, this is the one that I want right here. So I'm going to click on that result, and it's going to bring up the newspaper page. And again, you're going to have the same, kind of features that you had on Newspaper Archive, your adjustments, zooming in and out, going to different pages, all of those features. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to click save. So over here on Storied, it's save instead of clip. So if I click on save, I'm going to nab that information. And sorry, I'm like super picky about getting this just right. So there's my clipping, and I'm going to click on save. Now here's where it's going to be different. So at Newspaper Archive, it was going to send it to a folder, but here on Storied, I can tag people, which I love, 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 love. So I have my husband's family tree on Storied. I am going to find Fred, and he was Johann, actually. Let's do Siebert, see if I can find him. There he is. So this is him right here. I could choose other people. So if there's somebody else that's mentioned in this article, I could tag them. I could tag the kids, but for now I'm just going to do him. I'm going to click on next, and this is where it's going to take that information. That was like speedy fast. Whoo, it transcribed it already. So here is the transcription. So I can edit, which again, I usually do, because I might want to change the title. So I'm just going to call this one, actually, let's do Fred Siebert, Pioneer of Batesville. I always take this comma out. And then this has taken this exact information and it has transcribed it here for me. I don't have to do a thing, which is great. I could always add other media here if I wanted to. I could add other photos, whatever I want, but I'm just going to leave it with just this clipping. And I'm going to click next. And you can see again who's in the story. I have tagged him. I could do an author if I wanted to. I could put me, but I'm not going to. I could do categories for this one, and I'm just going to do memories. You can do as few or as many as you want. I'm going to click on next. These are groups that I'm in Storied, but this is what I wanted to focus on. So we have two different types of access for your stories. You have public access, which means anybody that has the link, when you share the link, kind of like the newspaper link, Anybody can view it, or it can also be private. So if you create a clipping or a story that you don't want other people to see, you can make it private, but I'm going to leave it public. This will be one that I send to my mother-in-law. So again, we have those same options that we had on Newspaper Archive. You can copy a link, you can do a QR code for the story, or you can share on Facebook, Twitter, or Pinterest. And this is where I always share to Facebook and share it so that my mother-in-law can see it, because this is her relative. If you don't want to do any of those, you can just X out. And what's really nice is it takes you back to your results page. So if you wanted to go through, I'm currently working on a bunch of clippings for my great grandmother. And it's nice when you're doing that, you can clip and come back to your results and keep clipping. But I want to show you, if I come to home now, let me do a refresh. That is going to, in my story feed on my homepage, you will see my story that I just did of Fred. So that's why I love that, this kind of intersection with, I can clip newspaper clippings within Storied, but the transcription piece is amazing to me. And sometimes I add additional things to that. I might put more information about him specifically, but you can add anything you want to that transcription like story. We also have over here, I kind of talked about the idea of people at Newspaper Archive, but we also have newspaper matches here. And that's why I kind of mentioned it was more robust over here. So when you import or add your family tree at Storied, it is going out and it is looking for your people, and it's looking at all the newspapers we have in our collection for newspaper matches that we might have about your ancestors. So this is my grandmother right here, and you can see there are 88 newspaper matches for her. And if I click on her and that takes me to her newspaper matches. You can see them here, and it searches different things for these matches, but this is searching where I'm from, where she was from. She had a 1940 residence in Greensburg, and she died in 2008. And it's telling me in that time frame, there are 88 potential matches for her in Greensburg newspapers. And I can review those matches. And again, it's just going to bring up the results from the newspaper archive collection into this account. And these are the potential matches for her. So that's another advantage of coming over here. And then I would be remiss if I did not talk about, we do also have storied books. So you can take your stories or your newspaper clippings and create a book out of them. So this is one that, and I'll put my video on when I stop sharing here in a minute, but I created one that was for my great grandfather, that was all headlines for every year he was born, like his birth date. So he was born in 1883. So he was born in March. I found March 6th. I found an article. It wasn't necessarily about him, but that's how I kind of did the whole book. Every year of his birthday, what was an article of something that was happening in the newspaper? A little bit different take on that is I'm currently working on one for his wife, my great grandmother, and she was busy in the newspaper. And so I have found already 25 different articles about her in the local newspapers of things that she was out and about doing. I'm not done. And some of them are just so, they're just, some people might think they're boring, but she went to Oldenburg Academy. So she was home visiting her mother in one of the articles. So it was just mentions of her in the newspaper, but I'm creating a whole book of her articles that were in the newspaper that mentioned her. So that is also something that you can do on the Storied side of things. And that was what this was. I'll bring this back up. This is an example of what her book is currently looking like for me. So they are hardcover. This is the cover that I created. You don't have to do a thing. It automatically creates table of contents for you based on your article or your story titles. It also creates two different types of indexes. It does a people index. So when I tag people in my transcription stories, This is showing up in this index. Again, I didn't create this, it auto creates it for me. And it also does places. So the newspaper clippings are coming from newspapers, and they are cited with that location that I mentioned. And you can see most of them are in Greensburg, but she had a couple, one on page 3 and one on page 9, that were from Cincinnati. That all is created for you when you create your book. And then these are just examples of what that looks like. Here are 2 different clippings and the transcriptions that came with them. And then you'll see there are tiny little QR codes down kind of in the middle of the bottom of the book. And if someone is reading your book and they scan the QR code, it takes them to the online version of the story. So it's just a fun way. I'm working on actually one of these for my mother-in-law for Christmas. So doing her side of the family and mentions in newspapers. So some just tips to kind of leave you with and to help you. I am searching in newspapers every day. Again, my favorite thing. I think this is an important one. News stories were often carried across county and state lines. I think when you are searching tight, like Greensburg is where I am from, if I am searching only in Greensburg, I would have missed so many different articles that were either in a neighboring county or even in a neighboring state. So don't discount that. You know, look for things, news stories that were broader than just your exact location. This one always surprises me, but nevertheless, larger cities carried smaller city news. This is so true in my case. So Greensburg's tiny. We're halfway between Indianapolis and Cincinnati. And I can't tell you how many times I've found Greensburg news in Cincinnati newspapers and Indianapolis newspapers, just kind of like society pages. Society pages have great out of town information, people that are visiting. I love those. Um, when I was doing the book for, oh, I'll talk about that in a minute. Society pages are a big one. Explore broad date ranges. This one is another one that I can't talk about enough. So I was searching for my husband's grandparents. I was looking for their wedding announcement in the newspaper, and I found it. But when I did one of my searches, I left my date range blank and I did not put anything in there. And lo and behold, in one of the Greensburg newspapers in like 1987, and they got married in 1923. In 1987, Greensburg had a special edition to the newspaper that people could send in their old wedding photos and information about their wedding, and they published it. And I found his grandparents' wedding photo in there. I found other family members' wedding photos in there. So don't discount doing broad date ranges, because just even though it's not the exact date you're looking for, another one that I think is important with this one is like anniversaries. I think people don't think about doing those anniversary dates that people have, 25 years, 50 years, 60 years. I find lots of anniversary dates by being broad with my date ranges. Try different name configurations. I think this one is a no-brainer one, but it's important. If I'm looking for, my grandmother was Disney, but I look for her as Mrs. Harry, and Sally was another one of her names. So try different name configurations when you're searching for ancestors. And then this is my highlight. So this is what I was going to talk about above. Do not discount the fan club and siblings. I was working on the book for my great grandmother and her mention in society pages. And of those 25 articles that I found about my great grandmother, I found 49 fan club people. And so from those I even like drew out a diagram, and then the way that those 49 people were connected to my grandmother and to each other, I have researched to last me for decades. So don't discount that fan club and searching for those friends and associates and neighbors of your ancestors. I think that's a great one. So I've mentioned Newspaper Archive and Storied. We are one and the same. You can search on newspaperarchive.com. You can search on storied.com, and it's the same collection. people are going to ask me this, so I'm putting it, I made Storied bigger because we have intro pricing on that right now. If you are a new subscriber, that you can get it for $99 a year. That includes everything on Storied, so all of our historical records and the entire newspaper archive collection as part of that. And when you have that subscription, again, you can search on either platform. So you can use your same login credentials to search newspaperarchive.com or story.com. I'm telling you this because if you go to newspaperarchive.com, and I got clearance for this, if you go to newspaperarchive.com, that subscription is higher because it's intro pricing for Storied. So if you're interested and you want the better deal, register at Storied, but you can still go to Newspaper Archive. And then this is just my contact information again. Again, I love to chat. If you're having trouble with something, or need advice or suggestions, ideas, I am always happy to chat. So feel free to email me. And oh, I do want to, while I'm going to hop out of this, but I'm going to do my video so that, okay, can you guys see me now? Do I have video on? I wanted to show you, this is my, the book that I did for my great grandfather. And so this is just what it looks like kind of in person. So this is the clipping that I did, the information. This was before we had transcription, so I included my own information about that. But this is just an example of how that looks with just clippings and inside the book. So I am excited to do questions. It looks like I've got several.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read them for you if you don't mind, Heather.
Okay, yeah, please do.
First one is from Debbie. She asked, when a clipping is made, does it show everyone that the clipping has been made? Because when she's doing work for a client, she doesn't necessarily want it to show that the article has been clipped.
Does the clipping show for, like, is it public? Is that the question?
I think so, and I think you kind of addressed that when you showed the public and private choice on Storied, if I'm correct.
So yeah, so if you do, and I failed to mention that if you do a clipping on Newspaper Archive, it shows up in your Storied account, but there's no transcription. That's why I go to Storied to do it. If I do it in Storied, it shows up on Newspaper Archive too, but if she doesn't want the clipping to show at all, I don't know how she would do. A clipping is not private. A clipping, just a plain clipping. So if I'm just looking at my, I don't want other people to see that I have made a clipping. You don't want other people to know you did it, or you don't want anybody to see that clipping at all? That's the question. Okay, both. I don't think there's a way to make a clipping private. You can do, I'm gonna share my screen again real quick. You can do the anonymous. So if I am on, okay, so you can see here, this says clipped by anonymous. I can change that. So when I make a clipping, you can choose to either have your profile name show, or you can do the anonymous so nobody knows you do it. But as far as nobody being able to see your clipping, I mean, they would have to have a direct link to your clipping, but they would still be able to see it. Yeah, there's no way to privatize a clipping. I hope that
Karen,
helps.
Karen asked if you could please explain the fan club a little bit more.
Oh yeah. So 2 seconds and I'll show you the fan club. So when I did my great grandma's, hopefully you guys can see part of this anyway. When I did my great grandma's clippings, I wrote down a list of everybody that was mentioned in an article with her. And then I tied them to her and other people. It took a lot of research, but like one of them, for example, and again, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but May was one of her very good friends. May was in so many articles with Disney. But so was Ed Batterton. And I later found out that May and Ed got married. It didn't say that in the newspaper clipping, but I did research and found that. So the fan club is just going to be those people that are associated with your relatives. So it could be friends, like May was a friend. It could be associates. So, like Goldie was another one on the list. Goldie was a schoolmate of Disney's, and she was in a lot of articles with her. Neighbors, that was one that really helped me a lot. And I knew that I was on the right track with some of these friends because I knew what address Disney lived at. And so I knew that I was that, they were neighbors of hers and friends of hers. So I use those just because those people, you might find a mention of your person with those people if you're not searching for your person. I hope that makes sense. So I do. That's one of my big things. I love looking at the network of your relatives. I hope that helped. Did I lose you guys?
Are there any promos or discounts available at the moment?
Yeah, so that the $99 one is the promo for intro on Storied. So that's what I would do that. Even if you do that, you still have access to Newspaper Archive. So you can still log in at Newspaper Archive and do all the Newspaper Archive things, but Newspaper Archive pricing is like 155. So definitely go to Storied and do that because it's better pricing. Fan club.
If there are no other questions, we'll let Heather go and thank her very much for her time today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank
Please
you.
remember that this webinar has been recorded and will be available later, hopefully this week, to OGS members through the OGS website. So Heather, thank you so
Awesome.
much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you. And if anybody has any questions, just shoot me an email. Happy to help. Thank you so
All right,
much.
great. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Bye-bye.